good, everybody? Welcome back to Universal Teas, the People's Podcast, and this is season 3. And this episode is called A Foundation for Self-Love. And so let's talk about how we got here. Before I get into all the things, I have to say, Happy Black History Month. Happy Black History Month. I hope that we all enjoy our time. If we, are so privileged enough to be able to celebrate this month. Shout out to the ancestors and shout out to the history that we are making every day. Okay? And also, Happy Love Month, right? So this episode, I wanted to start the month of February off with an episode about love. But of course, y'all know me in true Universal Teas fashion. I want us to lean into self-love. And so what I want us to do, what I want us to put ourselves in the mindset of for this episode is building a foundation where love for ourselves is abundant. I talk about this all the time. Last year, and probably the year before that too, my theme and my focus for Universal Teas was self-awareness with love. And so in those years, in that time frame, I really had to take the time to unpack what love meant. What did it mean to love, right? And there's an episode a while ago, if you go back into previous episodes, where I kind of break down what love means and how that came to me, because I just wanted to talk about self-awareness, right? I wanted to talk about, knowing yourself, being honest with yourself, doing all the things and, living up, being accountable. But for some reason, the term with love kept pecking at me. And so it's so crazy because when I get these signs and when I get feelings for something, I kind of let them be. I take my hands off and I don't force it, because then I get different deposits, right? Things come to me in a way that is natural. And so in that season of my life, when I was trying to figure out, like, why does love keep coming up? Why does this keep coming up when I talk about self-awareness? And so I was working at a school, an after-school program, and I was covering for one of my teachers who actually was out. And this was, I think, the last day of the program. And I just so happened to be, cleaning up the room before I left. The kids had left. And I, pulled the door back to get to the trash can. And I seen the Bible scripture that describes love. The love is patient, love is kind. And that really stood out to me at that time, because I had been in this space on and off for a full year and never really noticed this very blatant definition of love. And so when I read that, and I read that love is patient, love is kind, it is not boast, it's not envy, I realized that is how I had to weave it into self-awareness. So all the things that it said love was in that Bible scripture was how I had to evoke love within myself. And so then from that definition, I had to then look at, for this episode, I started to look at a more tangible definition. And I know this is a little bit backwards, but before I give the definition of love, I want to give the definition of foundation. Now, y'all know when I go on these websites and I'm looking for definitions, there's a ton of definitions, and what I do is I find the one that stands out to me most. And so the first definition I looked for was the word foundation, because this episode is called a foundation for self-love. So I wanted to know, what does it mean to have or be or experience the foundation? What does foundation mean? And so the definition that I got is, foundation is a body or ground upon which something is built or overlaid. So when I see this, and I think about it being a body or a ground where something is built. And so we're in a world, or you're dealing with people, or you're dealing with a situation, or you might be in a struggle, you might be in a mental struggle, and you're trying to figure out, how do I get out of this? How do I overcome this thing? And so looking inward means building a foundation. So this is where you get to decide, what you build. And then I like the portion in this definition where it says something, where something is built or overlaid. And so we tend to want to erase parts of us that are not favorable. We tend to want to disassociate from things that we may not be proud of, from things that may have hurt us, from things that have made us ashamed, for things that we are guilty of. But this definition of foundation being a body or a ground where something is built or overlaid, for me, what I take from that is your foundation doesn't have to be brand new. There are so many times where homes are built and things are built over them, and they're just as strong and beautiful as before they were built. And so you have to understand that building a foundation is a return. It's going inward. It's seeing what you've got. It's seeing what you're working with and building on top of that. Building stronger, right? A lot of times when we redo foundations, when we reestablish or they build things over. I remember when I was in Africa, we would see a lot of the homes, right, that were built, and they would have like the brick or the stone, but then there would be clay that was over them, that was built or overlaid on top of these. And so I questioned, like, why is there this clay on top of it? And it was like, oh, well, that clay is to keep the house cool. But had the stone not been there, the clay would have been irrelevant, right? And it served a better purpose. It made the home more favorable. And so just because you've experienced things and you've had things happen to you and you may have done things to people that you are no longer proud of, that doesn't mean that you need to knock it down and rebuild. It may mean you need to take the lessons from that. What did you learn from that season of your life? What did you learn from that version of yourself? And you need to start to overlay what is going to keep it sturdy, right? Because those parts of you learn, I used to be this way. I used to do this thing. I used to speak this way. Baby, if y'all go listen to some of my earlier episodes, I might not be as proud, but they are there because that is the foundation. That is what I started to build Universal Teas to be. And so now I'm at this new layer, right, where I'm constantly overlaying, right? I'm constantly reestablishing the foundation of what it is, and I get to do that over and over and over again to make a home, just like the homes that I saw in Africa, be more sustainable for this season of my life. Because those homes without the clay, when it's not as hot, when the sun isn't out, that's fine. But now that there's a different element that comes into play, right? There's a different element that comes into your life. You now have to reestablish or go in and rebuild or go in and restructure the foundation of something to make it more favorable for the season that you're in. Because now you're going to continue to build. You're going to continue to have the opportunity. And so when I looked at that definition of what a foundation is, when I think about, having a foundation for self-love, first of all, you have to understand what love is, right? You have to understand the thing that needs to be loved. And so now that you understand what needs to be loved, and we know that in this sense it's ourselves, you now can build that foundation and build it proudly. Even though there is something underneath, even though there is something that was there before, there's something to learn from that. There's somebody, you started your journey in a certain way because you wanted to keep you safe and you didn't know any better. So don't discredit who you've been. Thank that person for what they did to keep you safe in that moment, in that phase of your life, because it worked. It got you here. So now you have to rebuild and restack and repack and relayer what your life looks like now. And so then I looked at definitions of love, and I told you all the kind of biblical definition that came to me in that moment of being in that season of self-awareness with love. Because also, before I get into this definition of love, that self-awareness with love, I realized that when I was seeking self-awareness, when it was just self-awareness in that season of Universal Teas, I realized that I was being really hard on myself. I took self-awareness to the point where it was like self-blame, self-pity, self-doubt. And I took what should have just been me being honest with myself, with me blaming myself for everything, with me being self-deprecating, with me being hard on myself, with me being my own worst enemy, right? And so I had to reimagine that, and that's where I think God was giving me the love word from, because I was kind of like, no, it's just self-awareness. I'm not running away from who I've been. I'm not going to shy away from the things that I've done. And he was like, you got to be gentle. You got to slow yourself down. You have to hold yourself and love yourself. And so then, in this episode, I'm like, I want to lay a foundation, because this is a welcome back. Hey, I missed y'all. Especially going into this love season. And baby, the holidays, I don't understand why we do this to ourselves, right? I don't even know who made up Valentine's Day and started to make people feel a certain way about themselves when this day comes around. Love on yourself every day. Love on your partner every day. Love on your family every day. Like, don't, whatever. Anyway, commercial holidays are not my thing, clearly. But, what was I getting at, child? Love, right? When we're reestablishing love, when we're talking about reestablishing love from a different foundational point for ourselves, the definition that stood out to me this time when I was looking is that love is to like or desire actively. And I underline that word actively because in this sense, love is a verb, right? And so if you're laying a foundation, if you're building a foundation, which is a body or ground upon something, child, a body or ground upon which something is built or overlaid, and you're doing that with love, you have to do that actively, right? So what are you actually doing to show yourself love? What are you actively doing to prove to yourself love looks like? That is an active pursuit. So to love is to like or desire actively. And so, one, you have to like yourself. We talk about love, but there's a likeness that has to happen. You can love your mama and not like her. You can love a cousin and not like them. And so get into the root of what you like about you, right? We talk about gratitude all the time. What is it about you that you like? And even if you struggle to figure out what about you like, ask the people that love you. Ask the people that like you what they like to give yourself a head start. And so to love is to like or desire actively. So you have to yearn for yourself. You have to yearn for a certain version of yourself, right? If we're talking about laying a foundation and this is overlaying something and it's building something and it's having something that we are going to grow from, what is it that you actively desire for yourself? Because a lot of times we can get tricked into thinking that we want something when it's just that we've seen it so much, that we've now developed this concept that it has to be what we want because it worked for someone else. But now you're actively desiring what someone else has. So that's where your love is going to go. If we're talking about building the foundation for self-love, what you want has to be for you. It can't be with any outside influence. And so when we talk about laying a foundation, we have to understand that this foundation is being built for this reason. You don't just lay a foundation for a home without knowing what it's going to look like. You have to have a blueprint for all of those things. You have to have a blueprint for what the future version of yourself is going to look like. You have a blueprint for the type of mental health you want to be. You have to have a blueprint for the type of money you want to make, the type of job you want to have, the type of spouse you want to have, right? And so when we talk about love, you need to love yourself at the foundation. We're laying a foundation for love. Right? We're not laying a foundation for comparison. We're not laying a foundation for hate. We're not laying, child, a foundation for shame. You have to understand what you're laying this foundation for. And so in this season, we are building a foundation for love. Love for self. So who is this person that you want to like and desire actively? What do they look like, sound like, feel like? Where are they in the world? How do they dress? How do they eat? How often do they move their bodies? You have to establish, what does this person that I'm yearning to love, and I'm hoping that it's yourself, what is that person like? And so one thing that I've also noticed, get your mug, hold on. One thing that I've also noticed is a lot of us subconsciously and sometimes consciously sign ourselves up for tough love. We love a struggle love story. We love a difficult, I grinded until I got it. I forgave him or her 35 times. They only had 2 outside kids on me. This job didn't actually want me, but then they called me back. We love to say how we overcame something to get to love. And we've conditioned ourselves to love stronger the things or people, that's your business, not mine, outside of us, even when they are difficult to love, right? We love to say like, oh my God, this person has done this to me, has done this to me, has done this to me. but I still love them, or I have to love them, or I have to find out how to love them because they are my cousin or my grandmother or my auntie, or we've been friends for a long time. And so even when things don't make sense for the version of you that you are cultivating, you somehow find a way to love them through those difficult moments, but you can't do that for yourself. You are so hard on yourself, and you're ready to count yourself out every time something gets difficult, every time you get frustrated. But the very people, the jobs, the business partners that frustrate you, that disrespect you, that don't consider you on a regular basis, you force yourself to find a way to still like or desire them actively, even though you don't. Even though you don't want to. Because something has told you that you can't give up on this. Give that same unwavering love to yourself. Every time you are ready to count yourself out, find out, but it's me though. So I gotta love them. I have to actively desire them. I have to find something to keep me staying. Because you feel bad if you say, I'm not going to talk to my mom. You feel bad if you say, I'm not going to talk to my uncle. But you don't feel bad for saying, I'm done with this. I'm counting myself out. I quit. When it comes to you. Make it make sense, friend. Make it make sense. Just. So, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to tell you that as you're listening to this, whenever you're listening to this, it is your time. I need you to practice a foundation for self-love. But before you just say that you're on board for it, I want you to decide the self. And I know that's not grammatically correct. I want you to decide the version of yourself that you are wanting to love. I want you to decide the person that you are working to become. I actually want you to look at the person that you are now, because that is where you're starting from. That is where you're building from. That is what you're going to overlay with what is going to make you greater. And I want you to understand that you have to not give up on you. That means you have to understand that you need to like and you need to desire yourself, the best version of yourself, so deeply that even when things go wrong, even when things don't work out, even when something from your past, because our past love to come and sneak up on us. Whether it be a person from your past, a memory that you have of something that you're not proud of. You come across a video of you 10 years ago. Everybody been doing the whole 2026 throwback, baby. There's some stuff in 2026 that need to stay there. Even when things resurface that don't make you feel good, say, that felt good for me at that time. That kept me safe. I was proud. I had a good time. But you also need to decide the version of yourself that person needs now. You need to decide that, yes, that's me, and this is who I'm going to be. And you need to love that person. Meaning you need to like and desire them actively. You need to buy yourself the flowers for Valentine's Day. You need to go on the solo trip by yourself. Sometimes loving yourself and desiring yourself actively means doing nothing. No matter how fast the world is moving around you, no matter how much hustling is going around in the world around you, if you know that in this season, self-love looks like sitting down, having you a little tea in your Universal Teas mug, then that's just what it is, okay? Lighting you a candle. That's what that needs to be, but trusting who you are, okay? Because you know you better than anybody. So, what I'm going to leave y'all with is this. In this season, whenever you're hearing it, I want you to focus on building a foundation for self-love. Meaning, creating a space that you're going to build on, or a space where you're going to take what's already instilled in you, find the lessons in the ugly parts of your story, and lay foundation over it. Just like another definition that I saw was like the foundation that you put on your skin. And just because you wear foundation and makeup doesn't mean that you are not beautiful. You are just laying something over what is already done. Okay? So if you don't do anything, I want you to give yourself grace. I want you to love on you. And I want you to build yourself a foundation for self-love.